Welcome to the show both feared and revered by man and beast, the heliosblog. Today, Donald Trump interviewed on the Lex Friedman podcast. Oh man, here we go.
The reason she's alone is because she's difficult.
Women are not accepting the bare minimum.
Women fuck men they respect.
All the women who say things like, I'm strong, independent, I don't need no man, like, y'all impress me.
Women just gaslight each other and say what they want to hear.
I don't know if you know this, but some people call you a fascist.
Yeah, they do. So I figure it's all right to call them a communist. Yeah, they call me a lot worse than I call them.
A lot of people listening to this, myself included, that doesn't think that Kamala is a communist.
I believe you have to fight fire with fire.
Politics is a dirty game.
It is a dirty game. It's certainly true.
How do you win at that game?
They suffer from massive Trump derangement syndrome, TDS, and I don't know if it's curable from their standpoint.
I think we should listen to this and see if we can actually understand what's being said. I'm just hearing words.
I think we'd probably have a better world if everybody in Congress took some mushrooms, perhaps.
First of all, medical marijuana has been amazing. It's been, I've had friends and I've had others and doctors telling me that it's been absolutely amazing.
The list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it?
The following is a conversation with Donald.
Okay, let's skip this intro.
Life in real estate, in business, in TV, in politics. So let me start with a mindset, a psychology question. What drives you more, the love of winning or the hate of losing?
Maybe equally, maybe both. I don't like losing, and I do like winning. I've never thought of it as to which is more of a driving force.
You've been close with a lot of the greats in sport. You think about Tiger Woods, Muhammad Ali. You have people like Michael Jordan, who I think hate losing more than anybody. So what do you learn from those guys?
Well, they do have something different. You know, the great champions have something very different, like the sports champions. And, you know, you have champions in other fields, but you see it more readily in sports. You see it over a weekend or you see it during a game. And you see that certain people stand out and they keep standing out. But it's there for you. It doesn't take a lifetime to find out that somebody was a winner or a loser.
He hasn't really said anything. I don't know. He's just saying words confidently. I fail to see the train of thought. Sorry.
And so the sports thing is very interesting, but you know, I play golf with different people, and there's a different mindset among champions.
Okay, there you go. Finally.
There's really a very different mindset. There's a
Beating around the bush.
there's a different thought process. You know, talent-wise, sometimes you can't tell the difference in talent, but at the end of a weekend, they seem to win. And it's very interesting. Like, as an example, Tiger or Jack Nicklaus, he was a phenomenal winner. And he does have a different way about him. And Tiger has a different way about him. And Michael Jordan. And there's never one, you would think that there'd be one way. Arnold Palmer was the nicest guy you'd ever meet. And then you have some champions that aren't really nice. They're just...
Right. So it's not really about your niceness, is it? It's about your drive to succeed, your will to win, which is a hard thing. Most people, they can't focus enough to actually create something of value. It takes a lot of effort. Focused
on doing their job. So you have, you know, there's not one type of person, but the one thing I would say that everybody seems to have in common is they're very driven. They're driven like beyond.
They don't seem to give up easily.
They don't give up. But they do seem to be, you know, they have a passion that's maybe more than people that don't do as well.
You've said that politics is a dirty game in the past.
It is a dirty game. It's certainly true.
So if it is a game, how do you win at that game?
Well, you win at that game by getting the word out And by using sense,
It's pretty funny that Donald would say that. But anyway,
you have to have a feeling where it's going. You also have to have a feeling of what's right. You can't necessarily just go what's popular. You have to do what's good for a country if you're talking about countries. But you have to get the word out, and you have to just continuously, like, for instance, you have a great show. You have a great podcast. It's very well watched. And I'm sitting here and I do this. A lot of people see it. And I do other things, and a lot of people see that. And I go traditional also. You have traditional television, which is getting a little bit older and
in demographics, yep, he's right about that.
maybe less significant, could be less significant, I don't know. But it's changing a lot. The whole plane of platform is changing a lot. It's changed a lot in the last 2-3 years. But
what does he mean, platform? Like, he's talking about social media being more popular, like, or grassroots media being bigger than traditional news or traditional television. I believe that to be the case, that's for sure.
From a political standpoint, you have to find out what people are doing, what they're watching, and you have to get on. I just see that these platforms are starting to dominate. They're getting very big numbers. I did Spaces with Elon, and they got numbers like nobody's ever heard before. So, this is, you wouldn't do that on like radio. You wouldn't do those numbers, no matter how good a show. You wouldn't do
Indeed.
those numbers on radio. You wouldn't do them on television.
You've been successful in business. You've been successful in politics. What do you think is the difference between gaining success between the two different, disparate worlds?
Yeah, and they're different, very different. I have a lot of people that are in business that are successful, and they'd like to go over to politics. And then you realize they can't speak. They choke. It's hard to make a speech in front of that. Let's say,
Indeed,
you're talking about a big audience, but I get very big audiences. And, for many people, it's virtually impossible to get up and speak for an hour and a half and have nobody leave.
Yeah, Donald, it's virtually impossible for you to do the same. Again, when you have a big crowd, there's always going to be people that leave, no matter how good you are, even if you're at a popular rally.
It's not an easy thing to do, and it's an ability. But I have many people that are very, very successful in business, would love to do what I did, and yet they can't pull the trigger. And in many cases,
Camera loves him.
I don't think it would work. Almost for everybody, it's not going to work. It's a very tough thing to do. It's a big transition. And now, if you talked about people in the business and politics going into business, likewise, that wouldn't generally work out so well either. It's different talents. It's different skills. I have somebody who wants to go into politics so bad, but he's got a little problem. He's got stage fright.
Well, that's not going to work out, is it?
Now, he's a total killer, but if he gets up into a stage in front of people, he doesn't do well, to put it mildly, actually. I mean, he does badly.
So you have to be able to make hard decisions like you do in business, but also be able to captivate an audience.
Look, if you're a politician, you have to be able to speak in front of large crowds. There are a lot of people who can't do that. I've seen it. They can't even think about doing it, and they don't.
That's one of the biggest fears, actually, for a lot of people, because historically, if you talk to the tribe and you say something wrong, you could just be killed on the spot. So it's a lot of people's fear.
There are many people in business right now. I could name them, but I don't want to embarrass anybody. They've been talking about running for president for 15 years. And they're very big in business, very well known, actually.
What is he talking about, Bill Gates?
But it takes guts to run. Like for president, I can tell you it takes guts to run. It's also a very dangerous profession, if you want to know that.
That's putting it mildly, Donald. Putting it mildly.
The truth. But
I almost got his face shot off.
Dangerous in a different sense, too. But it takes a lot of courage to run for president. It's not easy. But you have, and the same people as I do, there are a lot of people that would like to run for president.
You know, he comes off as very personable. It doesn't seem like he's almost 80 years old, does he? To any of you?
That are very, very successful in business, but they don't have the guts to do it. And they have to give up a lot.
One of the great things about people from the business world is they're often great deal makers. And you're a great deal maker. And you've talked about the war in Ukraine and that you would be able to find a deal that both Putin and Zelensky would accept. What do you think that deal looks like?
I don't know about that. You know how politicians have a tendency to, to promise things they don't deliver?
I think the deal, and I wouldn't talk about it too much because I think I can make a deal. If I win as president-elect, I'll have a deal made, guaranteed. That's a war that shouldn't have happened. It's terrible. Look, Biden is the worst president in the history of our country, and she's
okay,
probably worse than him. That's something that should have never happened, but it did happen, and now it's a much tougher deal to make than it would have been before it started. Millions of people. I think the number is going to be a lot higher when you see this all at some point iron out. I think the death numbers are going to be a lot higher than people think.
Well, obviously, always. That's how it goes. People tend to underreport their losses for political purposes. That's true.
When you take a look at the destruction and the buildings coming down all over the place in Ukraine, I think those numbers are going to be a lot higher. They lie about the numbers. They try and keep them low. They knock down a building that's 2 blocks long. These are big buildings, and they say one person was mildly injured. No. A lot of people were killed. And there are people in those buildings, and they have no chance. Once they start coming down, there's no chance. So
yeah, how about Israel and Palestine? How about that?
That's a war that absolutely has to get done. And then you have Israel, and then you have a lot of other places that are talking war. The world is a rough place right now.
Indeed.
And a lot of it's because of the fact that America has
mentioned the interest rate.
There's no leadership. And I believe that she'll be probably worse than Biden. I watched the interview the other night. I mean, it was just a softball interview.
So you would like to see her do more interviews, challenged more?
I don't know. I can't believe the whole thing is happening.
The guy drops out immediately. Somebody's there to replace her. He gets basically shanked, Julius Caesar style.
A man in there that should have never been in there. They kept him in a basement. They used COVID. They cheated, but they used COVID to cheat. They cheated without COVID too. But you had somebody in there, and now we have a woman that is not. I mean, she couldn't do an interview. This was a really soft interview. This is an interview where they're giving her multiple choice questions, multiple guess. I call it multiple guess. And I don't think she did well. I think she did very poorly.
How do you think you'll do in the debate coming up? It's in a few days.
So,
I think I know how he's gonna do. Maybe we should. Maybe we'll put up some of that with commentary. We'll get that on tape.
I've done a lot of debating, only as a politician. I never.
We know what Trump is going to do. He's going to throw mud. That's what he does. He throws mud.
Debated. My first debate was the Rosie O'Donnell debate, right? The famous Rosie O'Donnell debate. The answer. But I've done well with debates. I mean, I became president. Then the second time, I got millions more votes than I got the first time. I was told, if I got 63 million, which is what I got the first time, you would win. You can't not win. And I got millions of more votes than that, and lost by a whisker. And look what happened to the world with all of the wars and all of the problems. And
by the way, have you noticed that Trump isn't doing that finger thing that he did the first time? He's not doing that now.
Look what happened with inflation, because inflation's just eating up our country.
Indeed.
Eating it up.
Every country.
So it's too bad. But there are a lot of things.
Yeah, Trump's going to fix inflation, guys.
That could happen. We have to get those wars settled. We have to get, I'll tell you, you have to get Ukraine done. That could end up in a third world war. So could the Middle East. So
I certainly hope not.
Maybe let's talk about what it takes to negotiate with somebody like Putin or Zelensky. Do you think Putin would be willing to give up any of the regions they already captured?
I don't know. I can tell you that all of this would have never happened, and it would have been very easy because you don't have, like, that question wouldn't be asked. That's a tougher question. Once that starts happening, because he has taken over a lot of territory. Now, I guess they're insurgents now too, right? So, it's a little bit interesting that that's happening and that it can happen.
Not sure what he's talking about right now. He's tangenting.
And it's interesting.
Tell me in the comments. I'm losing the thread.
Putin has allowed that to happen.
Oh, he's talking about the counteroffensive.
Look, that's one that should have never started. We have to get it stopped. Ukraine is being demolished.
Nope.
They're destroying a great culture that's largely destroyed.
What do you think works better in those kinds of negotiations? Leverage of, let's say, friendship, the carrot or the stick? Friendship, or sort of the threat of using the economic and military power?
So it depends on who the person is. Everyone's different.
So here's the thing. There's two ways to rule. There's bribery or fear. There's no third option.
Negotiation's interesting because it depends on who the person is. And then you have to guess or know through certain knowledge which is, more important, the carrot or the stick. And with some people it's the stick, and with some people it's the carrot. I think the stick probably is generally more successful in that, we're talking about war. But the kind of destruction that we're witnessing now, nobody's ever seen. I mean, it's a terrible thing. And
oh no, people have seen it.
And we're witnessing it all over. We're witnessing it in all parts of the world. And a lot of things are going to get started. Look what's going on with China. Look at Japan. They're starting to rearm now. They're starting to rearm because China's getting, taking over certain islands. And there's a lot of danger in the
That happened in the Second World War as well.
War right now in the world. There's a great possibility of World War III. And we better get this thing done fast, because 5 months with people like her and him, he's checked out. He just goes to the beach and thinks he looks good in a bathing suit, which he doesn't.
All right, we got to get our jabs in.
He sort of checked out. Hey, look, you can't blame him. That was a coup. They took it over. They
Indeed.
took over the presidential deal. The whole presidential thing was taken over in a coup. He had 14 million votes. She had no votes, not one. And nobody thought it was going to be her. Nobody wanted it to be her. She was a joke until 6 weeks ago when they said we're going to have to, politically, they felt.
By the way, notice how he hasn't said a name once. That's done on purpose, because the more you speak a person's name, you advertise them, right?
They had to pick her. And if they didn't pick her, they thought there'd be a problem. I don't know if that's right or not.
Yeah, you don't pick the girl. You're racist.
I actually don't think it's right, but they thought it was right. And now immediately the press comes to their aid.
If we can go back to China on negotiation, how do we avoid war with China in the 21st century?
Well, there are ways now. Here's the problem. If I tell you how, and I'd love to do it, but if I give you a plan, like I have a very exacting plan how to stop Ukraine and Russia, and I have a certain idea, maybe not a plan, but an idea for China, because we're in a lot of trouble.
But the reason he's not saying the plan is because they'll steal it. Well, that's not why. He doesn't actually have a plan, but
Be in a lot of trouble too. But we're in a lot of trouble. But I can't give you those plans, because if I give you those plans, I'm not going to be able to use them. They'll be very unsuccessful. Part of it's surprise, right?
Right.
But they won't be able to help us much.
So you have a plan of what to say to Putin.
Yeah, I know.
When you take
exactly.
office.
No, I had a very good relationship with him, and I had a good relationship with Zelensky too, but I had a very good relationship with Putin.
Tough topic, but important. You said lost by a whisker. I'm an independent. I have a lot of friends who are independent, many of whom like your policies, like the fact that you're a deal maker, like the fact that you can end wars, but they are troubled by what happened in the 2020 election and statements about widespread fraud and this kind of stuff, fake electoral scheme. What can you say to those independent voters to help them decide who to vote for?
Right. I think the fraud was on the other side. I think the election was a fraud.
Putting it mildly, Donald.
And many people felt it was that, and they wanted answers.
By the way, does anybody else feel that it's very personable right now? That's what I'm feeling. Whoever talked to Trump about strategy, interesting idea. It's working, I think. I think people really like this side of Trump.
And when you can't challenge an election, you have to be able to challenge it. Otherwise, it's going to get worse, not better. And there are lots of ways to solve this problem. Go to paper ballots. Do it the easy way. I mean, the paper ballots, and you have voter ID, and you have same-day voting, and you have proof of citizenship, which is very important because we have people voting that are not citizens. They just came in, and they're loading up the payrolls. They're loading up everything. They're putting students in schools. They don't speak a word of English, and they're taking the seats of people that are citizens of our country. So, look, we have the worst border in the history of the world.
Okay. Yeah, nice. What's the word for such an expression? Hyperbole. Nice hyperbole.
We have coming into our country right now millions and millions of people at levels that nobody's ever seen. I don't believe any country's ever seen it.
Yeah, okay.
And they would use sticks and stones not to make it happen, not to let it happen. We don't do anything. And we have a person who was the border czar, who now said she wasn't really the border czar, but she was. She was the border czar, but she was in charge of the border. And we have her, and she's saying very strongly, "Oh, I did such a good job. She was horrible, horrible."
Yeah, great job. border leaks like Swiss cheese.
Harm she's done, but we have people coming in from other countries all over the world, not just South America, and they're coming in from prisons and jails.
I like that he said that South America is a country. Good job.
Coming in from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're street criminals. Right off the street, they take them, and they're being given to our country. Drug dealers, human traffickers. We're destroying our country. This is a sin, what's been allowed to take place over the last 4 years. We're destroying our country, and we'll see how that all works out. But it's not even believable. And now you saw in Aurora, Colorado, a group of very tough young thugs from Venezuela taking over big areas, including buildings. They're taking over buildings. They have their big rifle.
Jeez, that reminds me of videos you see in Mexico.
But they're taking over buildings. We're not going to let this happen. We're not going to let them destroy our country. And in those countries, crime is way down. They're taking them out of their prisons, which is good because good for them. I do the same thing. By the way, if I ran one of those countries, any country in the world, I would make sure that America has every one of our prisoners. Every one of our criminals would be here. I can't believe they're going so slowly, but some aren't. But they all are doing
extradition.
It. And we can't let that happen. They're emptying out their prisons and their mental institutions into the United States of America. We can't let that happen.
That's insane. What? No way. Okay, someone in the chat, please fact check this. I don't know about this. It sounds unbelievable.
So a lot of people believe that there was some shady stuff that went on with the election, whether it's media bias or big tech, but still the claim of widespread fraud is the thing that bothers people.
Well, I don't focus on the past. I focus on the future. I mean, I talk about how bad the economy is, how bad inflation is, how bad things like, which is important. Afghanistan was, in my opinion, the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to our country. And because of that, I think Putin went in when he saw how stupid we were. Putin went in. But it was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. I really believe that. But, you know, we left 13 dead soldiers. Think of it, 13 dead soldiers, many soldiers horrifically hurt with arms and legs and everything else gone. We left hostages behind. We left Americans behind. We left military equipment, the likes of which nobody's ever left behind before. Billions and billions of dollars of equipment. They're now selling the equipment. They're one of the largest arms dealers in the world. And very sad, very sad. And
I don't know, is he referring to the quote-unquote war on terror?
And, you know, we were there for a long time. I was going to get out. We were getting ready to get out. Then we got interrupted by the election. But we would have been out with dignity and strength. We were having very little problem with the Taliban when I was there because they knew it was going to be tough. I dealt with Abdul. Abdul was the leader. And we got along fine.
Disaster. All right. On that note, let's end the video there. Hit the like, hit the sub, hit all the notifications. You can buy my books like Hunter N, Adrian R, Tom and Bobby, Dylan, Renaissance Press, Brian, Andrew, Alan, Armani, and Nicholas. Shout out to you, purchaser of both my books, Strategist Guide to Seduction and Quotes to Live By. You can buy my books at bit.ly/heliosbooks. If you'd like coaching services, I do offer them. Just message me at my email. That's theheliosblog@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, guys, especially if you listen to the end. I really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.